He and his wife Meghan felt abandoned, a major factor in their move to California. He added he felt trapped by his family and the toxic environment he perceived he was living in.
So Meghan Markle just dropped a photo of her daughter's face on Instagram after 4 years of keeping 𝗍𝗲𝗵𝗵 completely out of sight. For years, it was all about privacy, strict boundaries, and protecting their kids from the spotlight. After the speeches, the lawsuits, and Harry standing next to grieving parents talking about the dangers of social media, this move hits very different. Then suddenly, boom, a clear profile shot of their 4-year-old daughter goes up on Valentine's Day like it's no big deal. Take a second and really think about that. Because the timing here isn't just awkward, it feels wildly contradictory. This is the kind of switch-up that makes people do a double take. We're talking about a level of mixed messaging that even seasoned public figures would struggle to explain. Let me break down exactly what went down, why people are raising eyebrows, and why this moment might be one of the most eye-opening twists in the entire Sussex story since they stepped away from royal life. On February 14, 2026, Valentine's Day, Meghan Markle posted a photo on her Instagram account, which has around 4.4 million followers, and it instantly got people talking. The image shows Prince Harry holding their daughter 𝗍𝗲𝗵𝗵 on what looks like their Montecito property, all calm and picture-perfect on the surface. 𝗍𝗍𝗵𝗵 is dressed in a pink ballet outfit, holding a bunch of bright red balloons, and for the very first time, her face is clearly seen in profile. That's the part that really made people pause. The caption says, "These two plus Archie equals my forever Valentines," followed by a red heart emoji. It looks simple, sweet, and carefully put together, but it also feels very intentional. Because this is the same Meghan Markle who has spoken openly about how media pressure affected her mental health in a serious way. The same Meghan who said she struggled deeply during her time in the palace. The same Meghan who, alongside Harry, made protecting their children's privacy a major reason for stepping away from royal life.
That the 2025 Games in Canada were overshadowed by Meghan Markle's public appearances, referring to the event as the Meghan Games. He cites Canadian executives who allegedly felt Meghan was a distraction and that her presence was more about bling than veteran rehabilitation.
Are noticing the contrast immediately. Let me break down that courtroom detail, because this is where things stop looking slightly inconsistent and start feeling seriously shocking. This isn't just a small contradiction anymore. It hits a whole different level when you look closer at what was happening at the same time. There's a major case in California called 𝗍𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵, and it's getting a lot of attention for a reason. It's one of the first lawsuits of its kind to actually go to trial, accusing platforms like Instagram and YouTube of building features that are designed to keep young users hooked, with claims that this can seriously impact their mental health. The plaintiff, a 20-year-old woman identified as 𝗍𝗲𝗵, shared her story in court, and it's hard to ignore how intense it sounds. She said she started using YouTube at just 6 years old and Instagram by the time she was 9, spending huge parts of her day online from a very young age.
It's just, you know, of course it's important that public figures respond to this tragedy, and that's the most ghastliest of tragedy, but you can't help thinking there's a heavy dollop of opportunism and insincerity in this, which I think most people would find.
Compared to the big tobacco lawsuits from the 1990s, which says a lot about how serious people think this is. There are reportedly over 1,600 similar cases still pending across the country, showing just how widespread these concerns have become. TikTok and Snapchat even chose to settle before the trial officially kicked off, which only added more attention to everything surrounding it. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand himself, and Prince Harry was there in person, standing with families who say Instagram played a role in their children's struggles. He also took part in a memorial honoring young people whose lives were lost, which made the moment feel even more emotional and hard to overlook. He's been speaking out about this issue for months, building a reputation as one of the loudest voices warning about the risks of social media for young people. Out of everything he's done since stepping away from royal life, this is seen by many as one of the most serious and meaningful efforts he's taken on. Parents involved in the case have even
Netflix deal are beginning to dwindle. At this
Harry claims he and his wife Meghan felt abandoned, a major factor in their move to California.
And the stories behind them are heavy. Families are dealing with heartbreaking losses, and that's what makes the situation feel so intense. Then, in that same stretch of time, Meghan posts a clear image of their 4-year-old daughter on Instagram, the exact kind of platform Harry was standing in court criticizing for its impact on kids. That contrast has people doing a serious double take because it feels hard to line those two things up side by side. And here's where it gets even more striking. On March 25, 2026, the jury in the KGM case finally reached a verdict. They found Meta and Google liable, awarding $6 million in damages, split between compensatory and punitive amounts. The jury concluded that these companies acted with serious wrongdoing in how their platforms were designed, pointing to harm caused to younger users in a way that's now officially on record. Meta was found responsible for 70% of the liability, while YouTube carried the remaining 30%. That split alone says a lot about how the jury viewed the impact of these platforms. This ruling is being called historic because it's the first time a jury has officially held social media companies accountable for design choices that are said to affect children in harmful ways. Some legal experts are even comparing this moment to when major tobacco companies first started losing their shield of protection in court. There are nearly 2,000 similar lawsuits still waiting to be heard, which shows this situation is far from over. Harry stood right alongside these families, lending his name, his presence, and his voice to a cause that clearly means a lot to them. At the same time, Meghan is building a powerful brand on the very same type of platform now facing this level of scrutiny. And that's where the conversation shifts, because this isn't just about one Valentine's Day post, it starts to look like a bigger pattern. Her Instagram isn't just casual, sharing. It's a key part of how her public image and business projects are growing. Her lifestyle brand, as ever, runs straight through Instagram. It's the center of everything she's building. Her content strategy, her audience growth, her brand deals, it all flows through that one platform, and it's clearly working for her. But here's where things get people talking even more. Some industry watchers have started calling it the Lilibet effect, because whenever Meghan shares content that includes her daughter, the engagement spikes fast. More likes, more follows.
Passage, Bauer describes a match between a Nigerian team and an American team. He notes that while the Nigerian players had visible physical injuries, such as missing limbs, the American players, who he says were professionally trained, suffered from PTSD. He claims the American team wheeled themselves into a private area after the game and then all got up and walked away, appearing to have no physical injuries.
The Valentine's Day post stands out. It doesn't feel random to a lot of observers. It looks like the next step in a steady rollout of more visibility, more access, more public interest. And when you place that next to Harry's very public stance on social media risks, the contrast becomes hard to ignore. It raises a bigger question that people keep circling back to. If someone truly believes these platforms are designed in ways that can negatively affect young users, and a jury has now backed up concerns about their impact, how do you decide what's appropriate when it comes to your own child's presence online? And if you've stood beside families sharing painful stories tied to these platforms, what does that mean for how you approach using those same spaces in your own life, especially when your public image and business are connected to it? The Sussex team does have a response to all of this. A spokesperson has argued that pushing for safer, better regulated social media can exist side by side with sharing carefully chosen, controlled images of your own children. According to their view, it's all about balance and intention. Their message has been consistent for a while now. Privacy doesn't mean total invisibility. It means deciding what gets shared, when it gets shared, and how it's presented to the world. It's about staying in control of your own story and not letting outside forces dictate it. On the surface, that argument sounds polished and convincing, especially in an official statement. But when you look closer, that reasoning starts to raise more questions than answers. Because the concerns brought up in the KGM case weren't about paparazzi or unwanted photos being taken, the focus was on how the platforms themselves are built. The endless scrolling, automatic video play, constant notifications, and algorithm-driven recommendations that keep users hooked. According to the claims in court, these features can affect how young users think and feel over time, especially when they're exposed early. The jury agreed that these design choices played a role in the harm being discussed, and internal company documents presented during the case included statements like, "If we want to win big with teens, we must bring them in as tweens," which only made the situation feel even more intense. The concern here isn't really about unauthorized photos or media crossing a line. It's about the platform itself. The argument being made in court is that its core design is built to keep people hooked, pulling users back in again and again. And that's not just a casual opinion anymore. That idea was central to a case that ended with a $6 million verdict. So when Meghan shares a photo of Lilibet on Instagram, some people don't see it as just a simple family moment. They see it as content that draws even more attention to a platform already under heavy criticism. It brings in views, reactions, and engagement, all the things that keep the system running strong. And that's where the tension really stands out. Because at the same time, Harry has been supporting arguments about the risks tied to these platforms. This kind of post naturally fuels activity on that exact same system, which is why so many are debating it right now. Now zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, because this Lilibet photo isn't just a one-off moment. It highlights a deeper tension that's been part of their story since they stepped away from royal life. When Harry and Meghan left the royal family in 2020, the message was all about protection. Protecting their mental health, protecting their children, and stepping away from a media environment Harry has openly criticized for years. He's spoken about growing up under constant attention, blaming that system for shaping his childhood in a way that felt overwhelming and out of his control. In his memoir, Spare, Harry described feeling like he was constantly on display, like part of a system where his image was managed for him without real say. He painted a picture of living in a spotlight that never switched off, where privacy felt almost impossible to hold on to. That's why moments like this stand out so much to observers, because they seem to sit right in the middle of that long-standing conversation about control, exposure, and how much of your personal life you choose to share with the world. Not long ago, Harry was back at the Royal Courts of Justice in London, speaking about how he felt his public image had been controlled and shaped without his full consent. He described a system where decisions about his life were often made for him, not by him. Meghan has also spoken strongly about this, saying she didn't want to serve her children up to a media environment she once described.
Listen to Meghan, I am just reminded that there's nothing authentic there. She went on to say she's now the happiest she's ever been. She claims to be this entrepreneur without really acknowledging that her level of fame is because she married a prince. You know, the BS from Meghan just never seems to stop.
Are part of the public narrative, and images tied to family moments have been shared in ways that quickly gain attention. We've seen snapshots of moments like feeding a rhinoceros, walking through a pumpkin patch, or running through the fields in Montecito. Each image feels carefully selected, and every time one appears, it sparks headlines, reactions, and a wave of online engagement. That's where the comparison starts to come in. Some critics argue that while the royal institution relied on traditional media like newspapers and official photo releases, today's approach leans heavily on social platforms like Instagram. The tools are different, but the idea of managing public image through carefully chosen visuals feels familiar to some, watching from the outside. And there's one more layer that makes this conversation even more intense. Back when Harry was a child, the full impact of algorithm-driven platforms wasn't widely understood. Today, there's far more awareness about how these systems work and how they can influence behavior, especially for younger audiences. That added context is exactly why this situation is being debated so heavily right now. What makes this situation hit even harder for some people is the level of awareness involved. Meghan isn't operating in the dark here. This is happening at the same time Harry is actively speaking out about the risks tied to the...
Yikes! Harry's cash crisis. He is flat broke, and this program has been told that as the money runs out and runs out fast, Meghan will, and I quote, be looking to replace Harry with a US billionaire. You heard me right. Meghan Markle is going to dump Harry and replace him with a US entrepreneur worth billions.
Made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. Those interested in facts will look elsewhere. those seeking
release of the legendary tell-all book Revenge. The master himself is back with Betrayal. The moment
Even if it's not perfect. There are long-standing agreements with major media outlets, limits around photography, and official security measures that create some boundaries around their day-to-day lives. Outside of that system, things look very different. And that difference is exactly why this conversation keeps gaining momentum and attention. Within that royal framework, William and Catherine's children are often described as having a more structured day-to-day life. They go to school, attend events, and move through the world with certain boundaries in place, even if it's not perfect. That system creates at least some level of predictability around their privacy. Harry and Meghan's children growing up in Montecito don't have that same setup. They're in the United States, where media rules work differently. There are no standing agreements with press outlets, and the environment is far more open. On top of that, their mother is sharing images on a platform that reaches billions of users worldwide, which changes the scale completely. Once a photo is posted online, it doesn't just stay in one place. It spreads fast. It can be screenshotted, reshared, reposted, and discussed across countless spaces. It becomes part of a long-term digital footprint, something that can follow a person for years to come. And in this case, it involves a young child who has no control over how or where that image travels. That's where the debate sharpens. People are asking what the purpose of sharing that moment really was. It wasn't tied to a public event or a major announcement. It was a personal image shared on a global platform. And because that same platform is closely connected to brand growth, audience reach, and business opportunities, it naturally raises more questions about intention and impact. Harry stepped away from royal life in part because he felt his image was being used without his full control, tied to a system that benefited from it. That's been one of the core themes of his story for years now.
His cash crisis. He is flat broke, and this program has been told that as the money runs out and runs out fast, Meghan will, and I quote, be looking to replace Harry with a US billionaire. You heard me right. Meghan Markle is going to dump Harry and replace him with a US entrepreneur worth billions.
Users. That overlap is exactly why this moment is getting so much attention. At the same time, Harry's campaign around social media risks has been one of the few areas where he's received broad support. Families involved in the KGM case have spoken emotionally about how much his presence has meant to them. And the issue itself, protecting kids from harmful online environments, is something many people strongly agree on. That's why this situation stands out.
Not to their liking.
No, not at all.
Bauer uses
In the same space. From the outside, this situation can come across in one of two ways. Either there's a real difference in perspective behind the scenes about where the line should be drawn, or there's a shared decision being made that blends personal moments with broader brand strategy. Both possibilities are exactly why people keep debating this so intensely. On one side, you have Harry speaking strongly about limiting the risks tied to social media, especially for younger users. On the other, Meghan's approach to content clearly includes sharing curated glimpses of family life on the same platforms. That contrast is what keeps raising eyebrows and fueling conversation. There's also another angle that stands out. Some expected that the first clear image of Lilibet's face would be connected to a larger rollout or announcement. Looking at past patterns, a lot of content has lined up with brand moments or new projects, so people assumed this might follow the same playbook. But this time, it appeared on its own, which only added more curiosity. Because when every post is watched this closely, even what doesn't happen can get just as much attention as what does. Some people expected this moment to be tied to something bigger, like a children's wellness campaign or a clear product launch connected to her brand. That would have fit the pattern many observers think they've been seeing. Instead, it showed up as a Valentine's Day post, which opens up two very different interpretations. On one hand, it could simply be a personal moment, a mother sharing something meaningful without overthinking it. But on the other hand, some see it as a possible setup. The idea being, introduce the image, spark attention, build curiosity, and then follow it up later with something more commercial once the audience is fully engaged. And if that sounds a bit too calculated, there's another detail that keeps the conversation going. Just 3 weeks later, on International Women's Day, Meghan posted another photo of Lilibet. This one showed her from behind, sitting on rocks by the beach while Meghan kissed her forehead with the caption, "For the woman she will one day be," and a photo credit to Papa Sussex. 2 posts featuring Lilibet within such a short window, after years of keeping her face mostly out of view, definitely caught people's attention and added even more momentum to the discussion. That doesn't feel random to a lot of people. It feels planned out, like part of a content schedule designed to build momentum. The response numbers only added to that perception. We're talking huge engagement, tens of thousands of new followers, millions of likes, and coverage across major outlets worldwide. The so-called Lilibet effect was in full motion, and it was impossible to miss. At the same time, Meghan's Instagram continues to grow, strengthening her brand and expanding her business reach. Every post feeds into a larger system that thrives on attention, interaction, and visibility. And that growth is happening on a platform that's currently under intense scrutiny over how it impacts younger users, which keeps the debate alive. So it leaves people looking at 2 very different lanes running side by side. On one side, Harry is showing up in courtrooms, supporting families, and speaking out about the risks tied to social media. It's serious work, and for many, it carries real weight because of the stories behind it. On the other side, Meghan is building a modern lifestyle brand that depends heavily on social media presence and engagement. And as that brand evolves, moments involving their children are becoming part of that public-facing content, which is exactly why this contrast continues to draw so much attention. Her growth strategy is closely tied to what some are calling the Lilibet effect, and her broader business model is clearly rooted in social media engagement. That's why this situation feels so hard for many people to square. The same platform driving visibility and growth is also the one facing serious criticism in the legal and public arena. From the outside, it creates a tension that's difficult to ignore. You have one side raising concerns about how these platforms can impact young users, while the other continues to actively use that same space as a key tool for building reach and influence. That contrast is what keeps fueling the debate. For a lot of observers, it leads to bigger questions about alignment and consistency. Are these 2 approaches operating independently, or are they part of a broader strategy that hasn't been fully explained? That uncertainty is what keeps the conversation going. At the end of the day, people are left trying to make sense of 2 narratives that don't easily fit together. And that's exactly why this moment is being discussed so widely right now. What's clear in all of this is simple and hard to ignore. A 4-year-old child had her face shared with millions of people online this week. She didn't choose that. And at her age, she has no real understanding of what a platform like Instagram is, or how far an image can travel once it's out there. At the same time, her father has been publicly supporting families raising concerns about how these platforms affect young people. That's what makes this moment stand out so strongly to so many watching. It brings 2 very different realities right next to each other in a way that's tough to overlook. And that's really where the story lands. It leaves people forming their own opinions about whether this feels consistent or conflicting, and whether the idea of controlled sharing actually holds up under this kind of spotlight. So now, it's your turn to weigh in. Do you see this as a clear contradiction, or do you think there's a reasonable explanation behind it? Drop your thoughts and join the conversation, because this one has people split, and the debate isn't slowing down anytime soon.